up, YouTube? Your boy back once again with another sport topic, and today we're gonna talk some football, Houston Texans football. Today we're gonna talk about a couple players that probably are the best players offensively on the team. Both of them reaching over 1,000 yards and also gaining a Pro Bowl bid. We're gonna talk about them. We're gonna break it down. Before we get in there, like I'm telling you before, if you're liking the content, make sure you liking the channel. Make sure you're watching all the videos. You comment on all the videos. You liking all the videos. You sharing all the videos on all social media platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, any type of social media platform you use. Make sure you share it on the same social media platforms. Also, follow me on social media as well. Link in the description below. We trying to get this channel growing and growing and growing and growing. I can't do that without y'all help. I need y'all to do your part. And what that is, I need y'all to tell a friend, so they could tell a friend, so they could tell some more friends, so they could tell some more friends, so they could tell some more friends, and put them on game with the channel. Really, really appreciate that. So I really need y'all help so we can get this channel growing and growing and growing and growing. Really appreciate that. Now, especially for the last couple of weeks, especially at the end of the season, Texan fans have been feeling a certain way about the Houston Texans. We have been a little bit down, especially after that Baltimore Ravens game on Netflix. We've been a little bit down on the Houston Texans, feeling like the Texans are in this rut and that they weren't really good or they weren't deserving to go into the playoffs and really didn't have any real all-star players on this team or any guys outside of probably Stingley. I think Stingley is the one that people really definitely been talking about lately. He got his first Pro Bowl selection as well, about guys actually being able to be looked at to be all pros and Pro Bowl caliber players and things like that. But I think that the two guys on, well, it's three guys on offense, because you also add in Laramie Tunsil getting his fifth Pro Bowl selection. Two guys, one guy getting his first Pro Bowl selection, another guy getting the second one of his career, and Joe Mixon and Nico Collins, both of those guys actually going out there and becoming Pro Bowlers. And again, in a meaningless game against Tennessee yesterday, they were actually able to go out there, and I'm glad they were able to get over the 1,000-yard marks. Both of them was able to actually go out there and get the 1K, which I think pays off huge dividends. It is a boost in confidence, and it's also just an accomplishment for the hard work season that they've had, the hard season that they had, all the hard work they put in to the season out there, getting 1,000 yards, and both of them getting a Pro Bowl selection. So I want to talk about exactly what their numbers exactly is, because I know you got some people out there talking about like, why these guys are Pro Bowl selections, especially somebody like Nico Collins. People are looking at some of these other receivers and like, why did this guy get to be a Pro Bowl, but my receiver has more yards or has more touchdowns, or whatever the case may be. So let's talk about their numbers. Let's break it down, go into the actual nuances of how their season ended up being the way it was. So when you look at Nico Collins had 58 catches for 1,006 yards, 7 touchdowns, averaging 14.8 yards per reception out of 99 targets, and also averaging 83.8 yards per game. So in his receptions, he had, like I said, 68 receptions off of 99 targets, so less than 100 targets. And he got 5 of those receptions? No, 4 or 5 of those receptions in the last game of the season yesterday against Tennessee. He ended up 21st in receptions. He ended up 22nd in yards. Tied for 11th in touchdowns. He was 5th in yards per catch, and he was 3rd in yards per game. Now we also got to put into the context that Nico Collins also missed 5.5 games this season. Actually, a little bit more than 5.5, because he only played one quarter against Buffalo. He got hurt in the first quarter against Buffalo, which was the 5th game of the season, and then he went off to miss 5 full games. So when you look at something like that, at the time when he got hurt, he was the leading leader in receiving yards, and I think he was still the leading leader in receiving yards for like 2 weeks after the Buffalo game, and then the next game that we played, if I'm not mistaken, was the Patriots. After that game, he was still the league leader in receiving yards. Now Jamar Chase and everybody else just took off like a rocket, and I think Jamar Chase, the type of season he was going to have, especially with him and Joe Burrow, the way that they was playing all year, he probably would have still ended up being the leading receiver and also end up still getting the Triple Crown. But when you look at what Nico Collins was doing at the junction when he was playing this season, the beginning of the year, he looked like the best receiver in the league at that time. The way he was playing, you could not guard him, you could not cover him. And I'm really glad that he went out there and got his 1,000 yards and also got a touchdown to boot, because he would have got his 1,000 yards easily if he would have played those 5 games. And also, he was robbed of his 1,000 yards and a touchdown by his own teammates. The first game he came back against the Dallas Cowboys, he had a 72-yard touchdown that was called back because of Larry Tunsil with illegal formation. Oh no, not illegal formation. It was illegal lineman downfield. And then you also had against Tennessee, he had potentially the game-winning touchdown. It was like a 30-yard game-winning touchdown against. Got wiped off the board as well. Was it the following? Yeah, the following week against Tennessee. And that was because of a legal shift in either Tank or Joe Mixon. One of the two wasn't supposed to move. I actually think it was Joe Mixon because CJ went and like patted Joe Mixon on the head like afterwards. So I think it might have been Joe Mixon's fault. I think he was the one who wasn't supposed to shift, but both him and Tank shift at the same time. You can't have two people. You can't have two people on the offensive side of the football moving at the exact same time. So I do think it was probably his fault. And that touchdown got wiped off the board. So he would have already had, because he came into this week only needing 32 yards in the last game of the season against Tennessee to get 1,000 yards. And that was in that play right there. And obviously the 72-yarder. So he would have well got over 1,000 yards before we even got to this game, just based off of the two touchdowns and yardage that was taken off the board. That's 100 yards and two touchdowns taken off the board right there. So we're probably talking about Nico Collins having 1,100 yards. That's really what we're talking about. We're really talking about Nico Collins having 1,100 yards and what eight. He ended off the season with 7 touchdowns. Talking about 1,100 yards and 8 to 9 touchdowns. If you want to be completely honest, before we even get to the last game against Tennessee. And then the same thing with Joe Mixon. When you look at Joe Mixon's numbers, Joe Mixon had 245 carries. He ended off with 115 yards. 1,015 yards, 11 touchdowns, averaging 4.1 yard per carry, and averaging 72.5 yards per game. Now he was 15th in rushing yards. He was 8th in rushing touchdowns. He was 22nd in yards per rush, but some of this kind of skewed a little bit because you also got quarterbacks that's also in that mix, and obviously quarterbacks are going to average more yards per rush because of the way they run the football. And his rushing yards he per game, like I said, was 72.5, and he was ninth in rushing yards per game. We're talking about a guy that in the beginning of the season, again, he's another guy who got hurt in week 2 and missed 3 to 4 games in that season by a illegal hip drop tackle. So he was taken off the board behind a illegal hit that doesn't get flagged, just that they get fined the next game or they get fined throughout the week. It's not a flag because they don't call on the field. So I don't even understand why it's illegal. It might as well be legal if you're not going to flag it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a game against either Miami or against Jacksonville. One of the two, either Miami or against Jacksonville. He had got hip drop tackled again. Now, he didn't miss any time with that when he came off the field and missed a couple plays. He didn't miss any time because of that. But again, it seemed like the only way you could stop Joe Mixon at one point in the season was by doing an illegal hip drop tackle. But when you look at that, like you look at a guy who missed, like I said, he missed 3 to 4 games, and then this Russian attack outside of Joe Mixon just was putrid. Like as far as the scheme, the way we blocked it, the way we coached it, the way we called it, the way we drew it up, and the way we ran it outside of Joe Mixon. I said it ad nauseum. Really is a non-existent running game. I don't care that Joe Mixon got 1,000 yards. I don't care that he got 11 touchdowns. Again, he was this close to having his career high. His career high is 1205. 1,205 yards. That's his career high in yards. His career high in touchdowns is 12. Like he was this close of having breaking his career high in yards and touchdowns. Again, this is his second Pro Bowl. His first Pro Bowl was that year with the Bengals when they went to the Super Bowl, and that's the year he had 1,205 and had 12 touchdowns. So he was this close to breaking both his yardage and his touchdowns and able to get into the Pro Bowl. And we talking about a guy at one point of the season, he averaged 100 yards a game. There was one point in the season that he got 100 yards in every game up into the Lions game on November 10th. That was the first game this season that he played start to finish that he didn't get 100 yards. He got 100 yards in week 1. He didn't get 100 yards in week 2 because that's the game he got taken out of because the hip drop tackle. He missed the next 3 games. He came back against Buffalo, had 100. Against Buffalo, against New England, had 100 yards in that game. Came back against Indianapolis, had 100 yards and a touchdown in that game. Came back against Tennessee, not Tennessee, I said Indianapolis. Green Bay had 100 yards and touchdown that game. Had 100 yards and a touchdown the game against the Jets. Like he had 100 yards in every single game he played. They played from start to finish up until that. Like I said, up until the Lions game. Now then the Dallas game, he went crazy. 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards, had the hat trick. Was playing very dominant in that game. And outside of that, the first Bill, the not first Bills, but the first Indianapolis game, that's probably the game he looked the best in because again, that's the game he won AFC Player of the Week, had 159 yards and a touchdown, 2 touchdowns. I think he had a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown in that game. But or is that the Patriot game? No, it's the Patriot game. He had the receiving touchdown and the rushing touchdown. My mistake. He had a touchdown in the Indianapolis game, but in the Patriots game, he had a rushing and he had a receiving touchdown in that game. But then the game against Dallas had the hat trick, had 3 touchdowns, had over 100 yards, and if I'm not mistaken, got AFC Player of the Week in that game as well. So we're talking about two guys who, if you want to be completely honest, I know CJ's the quarterback and the quarterback get all the love. CJ, you can say that he had a down season. He had more kind of a slump this season. I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. Play calling, obviously blocking, a lot of things. His receivers missing time, his weapons missing time. A lot of that had to go into the type of season that CJ had. But these two guys right here, every single week that they were on the field, they came to play. Even the games where we wasn't running the football well, you could not say that Joe Mixon was playing bad. When we wasn't running the football well, it was obvious that we wasn't blocking it well. It was obvious that we wasn't calling it well. It was obvious that we wasn't scheming it well. Because when Joe Mixon touched the football, for the most part, he was making some type of play. He was making something out of nothing. And then also, at some point in time, because of the way the defense was playing the Texas offense, I say this all the time, he was gashing them. Nico Collins, one-on-one coverage, he's really your only one-on-one coverage beater on this team. He's the only person who can actually consistently beat one-on-one coverage. He's the one who can beat bracket coverage as well, and he can get downfield. Now, for a guy who's 6'4", for him to be your big play receiver downfield, unless it's Randy Moss, it's kind of like your 6'4" receiver shouldn't be doing that. But that's the type of receiver that Nico is. And I think the way when Nico was playing at the beginning of the season, he was looking like the best receiver in the league. We could talk about Jettas. We could talk about Jamar Chase. And again, they came in and they're still they've been playing at high level the moment they came into the NFL, and they're obviously playing at high level right now. Like I say, Jamar Chase has got the triple crown. We seen we seen Jettas leading the league in receiving yards as well. But both of these guys, both Nico and Joe Mixon, for the way that they played this season, they absolutely both deserve their 1,000 yards, and I'm glad they got their 1,000 yards in this last game of the season against Tennessee. And they also both deserve a Pro Bowl bid. They absolutely, and then we have a Pro Bowl receiver, and especially two guys who got paid this offseason. That's another factor too. So these also are validations of you made the right decision by paying these guys. I made a video earlier this offseason talking about Nico should get paid, and people were saying, "Hey, he only had one season. He's always hurt. I don't want to pay him just yet." All this type of stuff, and then as the season went along, we like, "Hey, we got Nico at a bargain because I think Nico's only getting paid $24 million a year. I really thought that Nico's going to get close around like 25, 26. So we got him $2 million cheaper per year than I thought. And then the way he started off this season, man, you was going to be paying Nico $30 million a year if he played if he played the way he played at the beginning of the season. If he never gets hurt, he would have gotten. He would have been a free agent. He definitely would be getting $30 million a year, if not 30, like 29. But he definitely, I feel like, would have been in that $30 million range because, again, he has 1,000 yards and missed 5 games. And then he didn't play really this game yesterday against Tennessee. So we're talking about a guy who, in essence, really missed around 6 to 7 games. Now, one of them was because of rest, another one was because of injury, and that is the reason why you were skeptical to pay him. And that's the reason why he took the pay. That's the reason why he didn't bet on himself, was because, hey, I'm gonna take this bag right now because I know what's been happening the previous 2 years. I don't want to miss time and end up costing myself money because, hey, if he didn't get paid, you can make a case because he missed 5 games this season. that we probably could have got him even cheaper than that 24 that we got him. So that's the reason why he decided to take that deal. Is because, hey, I'm gonna go ahead, take this, you get the 24 million per year. Top, I think at the time he signed, I think he was ninth, either eighth or ninth, as far as the receivers getting paid. Then other receivers got paid after him that bumped him down. I think he's, as of right now, I think he's 11th, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's 11th as far as making money per year. I think he's the 11th receiver as far as how much he's getting paid per year. But you're basically getting him at an absolute steal. So for him to get his first ever career Pro Bowl bid and also to get back-to-back thousand-yard seasons, again, we have been talking about Garrett Wilson. That's one of the things that we could look at Garrett Wilson, because people want to trade for Garrett Wilson, that Garrett Wilson has 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He's on the trajectory that what you call this, that Mike Evans is 1,000, and Mike Evans just got his 11th straight 1,000-yard season. He has 1,000 yards in every game, every season that he's played, and that's a trajectory that somebody like Garrett Wilson is on. He's played 3 straight years, got three straight 1,000-yard seasons with really no quarterback play. You talking about Zach Wilson, and 155-year-old Aaron Rodgers this past season. So that's what you're talking about when you look at somebody like Garrett Wilson. And Nico, again, Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor and Davis Mills, and then Davis Mills the second year. And both of those seasons, I think he only got like 400 and some yards. He didn't even eclipse 500 yards. To with CJ back-to-back seasons having 1,000 yards after he just got paid. And you can say the same thing about Joe Mixon. Remember, Cincinnati made Joe Mixon take a pay cut last year. His last year in Cincinnati, he played under a pay cut. And they were about to cut Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon was about to be cut until Nick called, hey, don't cut him. I'll throw you some draft picks. I want to bring him here. And we traded for him. And the first thing that they did, they took away his contract and gave him a 3-year extension. So we have him for the next 2 seasons. So we got him for this year, and we have him for the next 2 seasons. And Joe Mixon paid out huge dividends on that. He rewarded you by going out and having the type of season they had, giving you a semblance of a run game when you desperately needed one, because you haven't really had a run game outside the 1 year with Carlos Hyde. You haven't had a run game since Arian Foster. And he really gave you a legitimate run game based off of him. Again, I have issues with the Texans itself running attack because I don't feel like themselves is a running attack. But Joe Mixon always came to play, and him himself gave you a semblance of a run game. And I'm glad that he got his 1,000 yards as well, even though he should have career highs across the board and a career low in carries. It was like he was looking at having a career low in carries, as far not career low in carries, but reaching these feats with a low amount of carries. So he was looking at having a career high in yards, a career high in touchdowns, a career high in yards per rush. That's what he was looking at 3 weeks ago, because he was only 2 touchdowns away from breaking his career high in less than I think less than 300 yards away from getting a career high in rushing yards with 3 games to go. Like after that Miami game, so when you went up against Kansas City, Baltimore, and this last game against Tennessee with 3 games left to go, that's what he was staring at in the face. He really was sitting up there basically saying, "Hey, I'm about to get all these career highs." And I was very much hoping that he was going to get a Pro Bowl bid, because I think it's going to be very dicey for him to get an All Pro, because you got Saquon going out there rushing for 2,000 yards, the type of season that Derrick Henry's having, also the type of season that Josh Jacobs is having, and even the type of season that Aaron Jones is having. And all these guys are running backs that left their former team. Now, you could say that Green Bay upgraded from Aaron Jones to Josh Jacobs. So hey, there is that. But both Saquon, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, all these guys are making their former teams, making the Tennessee, making the New York Giants, and even making the Bengals look foolish for giving up on these guys. Either letting these guys walk in free agent for no reason, just letting them walk free, or in Joe Mixon's case, getting rid of him. Now again, Green Bay got rid of Aaron Jones, but they upgraded with they upgraded with the play of what you call it, with the play of Josh Jacobs. Now Minnesota in itself is a better situation and looks better as far as the way their record is, being a 14-win team and being the fifth seed. They could have got the number one seed if they was able to beat Detroit last night. But that's a conversation for another day. But like I said, both of these guys, I'm glad that both of them was able to get their 1,000 yards and able to validate the Pro Bowl voters for voting them into the Pro Bowl. Because I know some people like, why these guys in Pro Bowls? They don't even have 1,000 yards when you got all these 1,000-yard receivers and 1,000-yard running backs and things like that. These guys definitely deserve to be in the Pro Bowl, and they definitely deserve to go out there and get the 1,000 yards. And I'm very glad they were able to get those 1,000-yard marks and reach those speeds and actually validate Nick Casario for paying both these guys, going out and trading for Joe Mixon, and also going out there and re-signing and extending Nico Collins with a contract extension. Like I said, both these guys, in my opinion, have been the best two players on offense all season long.